Hello everybody, this is Unit 5, Formative 1, Day 3, Factoring with a GCF. Here's our first problem for this one. So we have 10w squared minus 64w plus 24. So for this one, if we take our GCF, remember we always start with our smallest term. So our smallest number is a 10. So if I write out my factors of 10, I'm going to have 1 and 10 and 2 and 5. So if I start with my biggest factor of 10, which is 10, I can see that 10... If I start with 10, 10 doesn't go into 64, so 10 can't be our GCF. If I go to 5, 5 doesn't go into 64, so 5 can't be my GCF either. So I'm going to try 2. So if I try 2, 2 goes into 10, and 2 goes into 64, and 2 also goes into 24. So I found my GCF. My GCF is 2. So now to factor out my GCF, remember we divide by every term by our GCF. Divide every term by 2. So I'm going to have a 2 times 10w squared divided by 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And then we have w squared. And then 64 divided by 2 is going to be 32w plus 24 divided by 2 is 12. So then we just have a 12 at the end. Now that we've factored out our 2, we have a trinomial that looks like what we've been dealing with. So now we're going to keep the 2 on the outside, and I'm going to make my 2 sets of parentheses, like we've been doing. So remember in our first parentheses, we're always going to have our whole number. So we're going to have 5w, and in the second one we're going to have our 1w. I'm just getting that from this term right here, because 5 times 1 is going to give us 5, and then w times w will give us that w squared. So now from here what we need to do is we need to take our a term, so we need to take 5, we need to multiply by our c term, which is 12. So 5 times 12 is 60. So I need to find factors of 60 that add up to my middle term, that add up to negative 32. So my factors of 60, I'm going to start at 1, 1 and 60, 2 and 30, 3 and 20, 4 and 15, 5 and 12, 6 and 10, and that's all of them. So now I need factors of 60 that add up to a negative 32. So for it to add up to a negative, I know at least one of my terms has to be negative. And since 60 is positive, so since 60 is positive, I know both the terms need to be negative. Because you either need to have both terms negative or both terms positive for them to add up, for them to multiply to a positive number. So now I need 2 of the terms that add up to 32. So if I take negative 60 plus negative 1, I get negative 61, which isn't what I want. So I'm going to try the next one. So negative 30 plus negative 2 is negative 32. So I found my 2 numbers, because I'm looking for 2 terms that add up to negative 32. So now we're going to do our little smiley face thing. So I'm going to look at this term right here. I'm going to look at the 5. So now I'm going to see which of these 2 numbers does 5 go into. Does 5 go into negative 2 or negative 30? 5 doesn't go into negative 2. So I'm going to put negative 30 down here, because 5 does go into 30. I know that much. And then I'm going to put negative 2 on the other one. So now I'm going to look for the terms that multiply to these 2 numbers. So I'm going to take 1 times this number over here is going to give me negative 2. So 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. And then for my other number, I need 5 times some number over here is going to give me negative 30. So 5 times negative 6 is going to give me negative 30. So for these ones, this is our answer. That's how you factor these ones. Okay, now for this one, we have a leading negative out here. We have this negative sign out here, and I don't want a negative when I'm factoring. I want to take that negative out. And I also want to look for my GCF, so a number that goes into 6, 4, and 16. So I'm going to start with my smallest number, which is 4, and write out my factors of 4. So I have 1 and 4, and then 2 and 2. So I'm going to start with my biggest factor of 4, which is 4. So 4 doesn't go into 6, so it's not 4. Now I'm going to go to 2. 2 goes into 6, 2 goes into 4, and 2 goes into 16. So I found my GCF is 2. And remember, we're also factoring out that negative, so I'm going to divide everything by negative 2. So I'm going to have negative 2 on the outside, in my parentheses. And then I'm going to do negative 6 divided by negative 2 is 3. And then remember, our variables just stay the same. We're not dividing by any x's, so they're not going to change. And then 4 divided by negative 2 is going to be negative 2. Again, we still have that x. And then 16 divided by negative 2 is negative 8. Okay, so now we have a term that looks like what we've been dealing with. So again, we're going to make our two sets of parentheses. And the first one's always going to start with our whole number. So our whole number in this one's a 3, so I'm just going to bring the 3 down. And it's just going to be 3x, and then a 1x over here. Okay, so now we have to take our a term, which is 3, times our c term, which is negative 24. So 3 times a negative 8, is negative 24. So now I need factors of negative 24. I'm going to start with 1. 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6, and that's all of them. Okay, so now I need factors of negative 24 that add up to negative 2. So for it to add to a negative, I need my bigger number to be negative. Put plus signs in between here too, because we're going to add our factors. So 1 plus a negative 24 is going to be negative 23. That's not negative 2, so I'm going to cross that one out. That's not what I want. Now I'm going to go to 2 plus negative 12 is going to be negative 10. It's a little bit closer, but not quite negative 2. Now I'm going to go to my next one. Negative 8 plus 3 is going to be negative 5. Still not negative 2. And my last one, 4 plus negative 6 is negative 2. So I found my two factors. And remember, at this point, we can't just plug those numbers in because we have this 3 out here. So now we're going to do our little smiley face thing. And now I'm going to look at the 3. So which of these two factors over here does 3 go into? Does it go into 4 or negative 6? I know 3 doesn't go into 4, but it does go into 6. So I'm going to put my negative 6 down here. Then I'm going to put my 4 on the other one. So now I need to see what 1 times what number is going to give me 4. The only number that could be is 4. So I'm going to put plus 4 up there. And then I need 3 times some number over here is going to give me negative 6. So 3 times a negative 2 is going to give me negative 6. So this is how you factor this one. Okay, here's our last problem. So again, we're going to start with factoring out our GCF. So for these 3 terms, our GCF is going to be 3. Again, you can write out your factors with your smallest number. So our smallest number is 3, so our factors are 1 and 3. And then we can see that 3 goes into all of them, so 3 is our GCF. That's how I got 3 for our GCF. So now I'm going to put 3 on the outside, and then 9 divided by 3 is 3, and then it stays r squared, plus 3 divided by 3 is 1, and then we're still going to have an r, and then negative 30 divided by 3 is 10. Okay, so we factored out our GCF. Now we need to factor the rest of this. So we're going to have 3 on the outside, and then our 2 sets of parentheses. I'm going to have 3r and 1r. And now I need to take our a term, which is 3, times our negative 10. So I'm going to have negative 30, and I need to find factors of negative 30 that add up to our middle term. So that add up to 1. So our factors of 30 are 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 4 doesn't go into 30, 5 and 6, and that's all of them. Okay, so if they add up to or if they multiply to a negative 30, I know one of them has to be negative and one has to be positive. And since this middle term is a positive 1, I know my smaller number needs to be negative. So I'm going to make all my smaller numbers negative in my factors. Then we're going to add them together. So a 1 plus 30, a negative 1 plus 30, sorry, is 29, positive 29. So it's not that one. 15 plus a negative 2 is 13. And we want a 1, so it's not 13. 10 plus a negative 3 is 7. We're getting closer. And then negative 5 plus 6 is 1. So I found my two factors of negative 30 that add up to 1. And remember, again, you can't just plug them in. We need to do this little smiley face thing again. And now I want to see which number does 3 go into. Does 3 go into negative 5 or does 3 go into 6? 3 doesn't go into negative 5, but 3 does go into 6. So I'm going to put the 6 down here and then negative 5 up here. And now I want 1 times some number is going to give me negative 5. So 1 times negative 5 gives me negative 5. And then 3 times some number over here is going to give me 6. So 3 times positive 2 is going to give me 6. So this is how we factor this one. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.